Hello, welcome back to Capes and Phasers. I'm Trev, and he is Gray. Gray, I know we're here for the Star Trek Strange New Worlds episode review of 4.5 Vulcans, but
hmm
I heard beforehand that this was going to be a bit pants, a bit crap. Some people online were saying it was going to be a goofy episode, another one of the two or three, four episodes that tend to be really silly in a season these days with Star Trek, but I surprisingly enjoyed that. What about
Yeah,
yourself?
no, I did too. I thought it was, with little things here and there, like you said. I haven't heard all bad about it out there, but enough to know that we
Yeah.
may not be in for such a great episode. And yet, yeah, I thought it was good. In fact, I thought this was more like the humorous episodes that they used to do in the original Trek. They handled it
Yeah.
very well without getting too weird, like they did with the singing and the other whatever. So, I think if they don't get too wacky and they handle it properly, it can work. I've never seen Patton Oswalt as a Vulcan though. That was interesting.
Yeah.
I think it was more
Well,
interesting because Oswald is very expressive in how he acts. So he had to act like a Vulcan, which was not like his usual roles. So it was kind of interesting.
he's cool. I've seen
Yeah,
him in quite a few things, but I've seen him in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. That's a good example if you ever watched that program. He's a very known face, that guy.
he's everywhere, and
Um,
he does voice work all over the place. I mean,
he does. Yeah.
everybody wants him for his unique voice. I'm watching Sandman again on Netflix, and he does the voice of the bird in Sandman. I'm like, I said, what don't you do? Like,
Busy guy. No, it was a really good episode, I must admit. Um, you're talking about, not being too ridiculous, and that was a fear,
yeah,
that this
yeah,
could be ridiculous. And while this was a good episode for us anyway, unfortunately, I don't think it'll always be like that. I
mm.
think, for example, the teaser for season 4, they're going to
Oh,
be Muppets, man. I mean, come on, that could potentially be worse than Klingon opera. Potentially worse.
I
What
don't.
would
Yeah,
what in science fiction could make you a fucking Muppet? Excuse my French, people. I don't swear often in this, but honest to God, there's no science fiction behind that whatsoever. At least I just about bought the singing thing. It was something that affected their minds and communication. I just
yeah,
about bought it, although I didn't like it. Where's the science fiction of Muppets, man? So it's going to get a lot more silly. All they're doing,
yeah,
Gray, is literally the guy from Tachyon Pulse said this. It's like genre swapping. It's like science fiction, but they can pick any genre. I was like, that's not how science fiction works, man.
yeah.
So I'm
They're
concerned
getting
about
too
the future,
close
man.
to a fantasy side of things. If it was fantasy,
Star
well, then
Wars.
all things are possible, I guess. But yeah, they're whenever they do something like that, they get away from the science fiction aspect. You
Yeah,
know.
it's that. This is what separates Star Wars and Star Trek for me. Not to get into that debate. One's science
Yeah.
fiction and one's fantasy,
Yep.
with science fiction mixed in. Star Wars
Mhm.
is fantasy with science fiction mixed in. With Star Trek is mostly or should be science fiction, so it's a little bit weird. But I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, I was pleasantly surprised. Do you want to know something? I'm actually going to go as far as giving it an 8 out of 10. That's how much I enjoyed it. I don't know.
Yeah.
What would you say? Would you go as high?
Yeah. I was wavering between a 7 or an 8. Um,
Close enough.
I'll probably stick with a 7. Not then that's not a bad 7. I
Yeah,
liked it
yeah,
very
yeah.
much, but I
Seven's a very good score.
yeah.
Yeah, 100%. I have to agree with you there. It was probably the same for me. Obviously, it was an interesting idea. They
Mhm.
complete the mission really quickly as Vulcans. They have to go in undercover as Vulcans because the scanning technology is too good, and it would be found out if they just superficially changed themselves.
Right.
And they complete the mission, but then they're stuck in that form for quite a while, and weird shit happens. The most concerning one was Lan because
Yeah.
she's wanting to plot war and take over the whole bloody galaxy, literally. And I was like, I didn't see that coming. You think that's just down to
I
her
I
nature as security and stuff and what she went
yeah.
through with the Gorn and whatnot?
I think that was part of it. But, because I knew as soon as I started acting a little odd, I even told you this is Romulan, and then they said it later, that it's Romulan. So basically, she I don't know if devolved or evolved or whatever took over with the parts that Vulcans obviously suppressed years ago, and Romulans took off on their own.
Is that what Pike and Lan were talking about to one another? That's the bit I was confused about.
Yeah, the two women were saying that while they were Vulcans, they were saying that, we can't talk about it because Vulcans aren't supposed to talk about that. They look at that part in their history as being, bad, and they don't.
Yeah,
And it's
ashamed almost.
right, exactly, because it was such a high degree of emotions to them. But the other one was seeing it the other way, thinking like well, I was thinking like, yeah, what's wrong with Romulan or whatever.
Yeah.
Them both coming to the same conclusion was interesting, but yeah, she was getting like definitely more Romulan as time went on, and I think it had something to do with their what they were, because the one thing I did like about this episode is they didn't come out and say that they were real Vulcans, meaning real like born Vulcans. They were real Vulcans for the time that they're gonna be Vulcans, but
Hmm.
that doesn't mean you're not gonna have problems. You can't just sit there and shove a human into that role. And like Spock was saying, everybody has a katra or a soul or whatever, and theirs didn't change. It just got taken over by Vulcan for a while.
Yep.
So the way they explained it, if they didn't find a cure, let's say, they probably would have had some real problems down the line because they wouldn't be able to handle it. Um, but luckily, they figured out enough stuff in time to get them out of it. But it was interesting, and I like the whole idea of the dance because that was something they needed to snap Leon out of this Romulan gig, so to speak. And when Spock got into the dance thing, that really worked. Of course, we got a little interesting relationship. I thought she was going to plan a kiss on him. He's kind of, I, I don't know. They looked like they really wanted to, but didn't quite get there. I
There
guess.
wasn't any need for that, really, was there?
It's okay. The mystery is part of the fun with it. They don't like when she commented that what was it? What's when Buggy knew when number one talked to her, and she goes like, "Well, there's a pair of socks in my drawer," and she's like, "Okay," and they go like, "Yeah, but they're clean socks." I said, "So what kind of relationship is this?" In other words, he's parking his socks there when they dance, but it doesn't mean
Yeah.
that they're in a relationship.
Yeah,
Uh,
but
you know,
that freaks some people out, doesn't it? It's like, especially women, sometimes it's like, oh, that's you kind of thinking unofficially you're moving in a little bit, and he's
right,
thinking
exactly.
nothing of it.
In a human way, the socks would be dirty, and it's
Yeah,
because your boyfriend left them there.
yeah,
And, whatever, but Spock did it intentionally because it was logical to keep a pair of socks there. So
yeah, yeah, yeah.
so I thought that
Um,
was really good that you don't really that shows to me that there's some decent writing going on because
yeah,
you don't pick up on these things until you hear it explained, and then you're kinda like, "Oh, yeah," the inner meaning, in other words, and
yeah,
stuff.
true.
So I like that. So I think that's what really helped the show a lot was the writing was definitely up to par to pull an episode like this off. If it had been a bad writing, this episode would have been real horrible.
True.
You know.
I have to ask you about a bugbear of mine. Uh, Obviously, the Kirk coming back on because he was nearby. Another kind of appearance from which didn't really fit, but whatever, he was there and he was roped into helping out Lan and Scotty, trying to beef the power up in the ship and the weapons because she was going full warmongering.
Hmm.
Um, and he said to Scotty, "Call me Jim." But I'm sorry, Scotty very rarely, if ever, called him Jim. It was always Captain.
And
Always
they
Captain, mate. So that didn't fit. I'm sorry. It made no sense. If anything, later on in their career, you say that.
well,
That makes no sense.
I look at it this way: there's two different things. Number one, he did call him Jim once or twice in the original
Yeah.
series, but when he did call him that, it was more in a situation of a friendly atmosphere, which is what this was.
Do you think he respects him too much that he just call him Captain then? All the time. Most of the time.
I think Scotty's the kind that if they're in a bar like they were having a drink, he might say Jim, even though we didn't see a lot of that. That doesn't mean it didn't happen. And I think
True.
that when now that we can see that happen because again back then in the 60s they're not going to do that. You
No, of
know
course not.
exactly. But there was a scene or two, and I can't really pick out the episode where he did say Jim once or twice, but it was one of those scenes where it was unusual or emotional or whatever. and stuff. So, and I think also too, it's just kind of grew on them, like Scotty, Captain Scotty. Yeah,
Well, it was actually a really cool thing to see those two bonding because they have a
yeah,
unique relationship. I know he's not part of the Holy Trinity, but like you said before, outside them, he was one of the folk to feature the most outside the three.
yeah.
So it was good to see their relationship actually bonding a little bit. Um, and Scotty start to come into it a little bit more because, as we know, Pelly at the moment is head engineer,
Hmm.
but she wasn't heavily involved as much in this episode because she's not like a main character. So it's more reoccurring. But the serum doesn't work in her, and they all start turning into Vulcans, and she's just like, and I'm like, I can't wait to see what she'd be like as a Vulcan. And I'm still gutted we never got to see that, but she didn't affect her. I think what were they alluding something to like the serum didn't work, and she was blaming too much LSD back in the '60s and the '90s,
Something like that.
and then
Yeah,
last July she said,
yeah. That was funny. She goes in the '60s, and she goes, well, in the '90s, and last July. Like, she has some good lines, but the only thing that I think annoyed, if I had to pick out something that annoyed me a little in the episode, was that I think they used her too much because she was dropping one-liners like all the time, and or doing weird things like the high five, and it's
yeah,
okay if in other words, it's okay if you sprinkle a little of that here and there, which is fine.
yeah.
But I think they sprinkled way too much of that shit with her character, and they should have just toned that one down. Um,
True, because then she just turns into a comedian and she's allowed to be funny, but I also want to see her serious side,
yeah,
her engineering side more often because she is head engineer after all, chief engineer. So,
right, all right. In this particular episode, she came across more as a sidekick comedian,
and
and
Scotty felt more of the engineer because he was actually doing engineering type things. I mean, he set up the
yeah,
booby trap to
yeah.
actually take La'an out, so it was pretty interesting.
That was
What
pretty funny though. The Star Trek taser.
Yeah, I knew that was going to happen, man, or he was going to like on the neck or something, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
What did you not like about this episode then? Like any kind of negative or anything? Like, because you say you get a
Um,
7. What could have been tightened up for you?
well, the thing with Pelia for sure, that stood out to me the most, that they just
Oh, right,
overdid her
yeah,
character. I mean, she's more funny when she drops lines at appropriate times. But this
yes,
time she sounded like she was just like, "Hey, what's the next one liner I can do?"
yeah,
And that
true,
was getting to
true,
me after a while. And the high five thing didn't go well. It might have won well, been better. I don't know. It just was too much Pelia. So that was probably my major problem. Other than that,
yeah,
it was. I guess it could have been tighter here and there in some of the scenes and stuff like that. But it's tough because a lot of people say it's often harder to portray comedy than it is to portray seriousness. And
yeah,
I can almost see that when you're watching them. They're not natural comedians, and so now they have to become kind of like comedic to make it work.
true,
It's
true,
not
yeah,
easy to do. So you could see it in some of them. Some of the performances where some were spot on, other ones were kind of not
yeah,
quite
forced,
there,
yeah.
and stuff. Nothing bad. We're nitpicking now, but I'm just saying, in order to
What
bring it up for me, they would have to have tightened up all that stuff.
what did you make of Captain Patel's angle? I thought at the start that was a bit weird, but then obviously it ends up pretty well because, as we find out, she's having dinner with Pike, who's a Vulcan, of course, and the Admiral, who is a Vulcan naturally, and she just loses the plot with their honesty because Pike's thrown her under a bus saying she's not 100% perfect. And she turned around and listen up here, so yeah, like I'm giving you
Yeah,
some.
yeah,
And
that
then
was
she
good.
says that to the Admiral, she loses her plot. But then at the end, she's like, "Oh, I'm going to resign. Don't worry." The Admiral says, "I'm actually going to give you a promotion. I'll give you my job because of your honesty." I actually really liked that angle.
Yeah.
She didn't feel useless in this episode for once.
Yeah, exactly.
Gray. She
Or just
actually
a
felt like she had
passing,
a point.
yeah.
I'm assuming you enjoyed that angle as well. There, I didn't
Yeah,
see
I
that coming.
did, I
Like I
did.
thought she would get a captaincyship back, but she didn't. She actually got a rise even higher, man.
And
So
to be honest, I think they handled that whole thing correctly. She can't
yeah,
be just thrown back into the captaincy right away. And they are still dealing with this whole Gorn thing that they're keeping under control and stuff like that. Well, what happens if you're a captain and the Gorn thing, I don't know, comes out? You can't risk that. So I think that
yeah.
makes a lot of sense. But on the other hand, her to be able to do the job that she is gonna do actually furthers her career, and she can be capable of doing it. So it really made a lot of sense.
It did, and it's experimental treatment she's getting at the end of the day, mate. So I think they actually probably done the right thing, to be honest with you,
Yeah.
with her. And obviously, the other person it'd be um, in this whole thing would obviously be Ahura in a relationship with
Mhm.
Ortega brother. Uh,
Beto.
I can never. Yeah, his name
It's
is.
Beto, Beto, I think.
He's an Ortega. I know that much.
Yeah, yeah.
I found that interesting. Because she's obviously wanting a relationship with him, but as a Vulcan, so she actually brainwashes him, which I
Yeah.
was like, "Holy shit!" And then
I
she
know, I was
kinda
wondering why he was acting so, he said, "Wait
oh,
a minute, he can't be, it seemed too easy." And then I started thinking in the back of my mind meld, and then she admits it. I'm like, "Oh, okay." Uh, you
yeah,
know
I didn't see that coming, man. I really didn't see that coming, but it was an interesting angle with every single one of them.
mm,
Obviously, Chapel is going to break up our friendship with everyone. And also with Corby, I love her at the same time. Like, you know, I can't waste it in romance. It's illogical, blah, blah, blah. Then she invites them both to dinner at the end to kind of make up. That was another good angle with her as well. They actually all
yeah.
had good individual subplots and stories,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
thought. Um, and
And I
then the
thought the
last bit,
writing again was very good. When they had the
it
plummet
was,
soup, they could have just said, "Oh, plummet soup," and just dropped it right there. Instead, they actually wrote a couple of cool lines in there where he was going like, where she had said something like, I understand your bluntness," and he
yeah.
goes, "Good, because your soup is crap." That was great.
No, he said it's not
I
satisfactory
know
or
I said
something,
that,
wasn't
but
it? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. But yeah, no, of course, same difference.
and it was perfect when he said that. He just goes like, "Oh, great, because the soup is not really that great." But, oop.
The and she's like, "Yeah, I'm very sorry," but actually, she actually she actually tries a little bit of it herself, and then realize actually it's not that great. 2 seconds grace.
I think what I would have done if it was, I would have had her throw up. That would have been even funnier. Just kind of turn off screen and go "Bleh," or something.
I would. I would have done the same, to be honest with you. Yeah, no, I found that amusing, great. And then obviously, last but not least, it was Ahura, and she was involved. She was involved in that relationship with that guy. I can't remember his name, the actor's
Yeah.
name, but I can't remember the character's name. And what the hell was going on with that? Like, every time she saw him, she almost like got the puppy eyes and stuff, and fell deeply, madly in love. That it was
Oh, number
funny.
one
If
and
yeah,
Patton's, yeah,
if
Doug.
it was
His name is
if it
Doug.
if it was a little strange, it didn't fit. It was weird. It wasn't bad, but it was just I didn't get it. It's weird.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
don't get it. I not a criticism grade, but maybe like why did they go with that angle, that kind of story? I just didn't get it. It was funny,
yeah.
but why?
No, it's good you pointed it out. After I thought that was another after Pelia, that was another kinda weakish point of the episode. It was okay, but it was, yeah. It was hard to make sense in anything. It was just kinda like,
It,
you're
it,
shaking your head a little bit here and there, like, but I'll tell you, it was a good setup for the end though, which was kinda, that was interesting, where she just said, "Ah, the hell with it," and she's, you know, dressed to the nines with the short skirt and just walks out with the guy with Doug, and stuff. So
yeah,
that was kinda interesting. I
it
like
was
when he
pretty
first
good.
came on, Patton goes, "Yeah, I'm Doug." Well, to set it up though, they said that he was an expert in humans, et cetera. And so he was so enamored about the studies of humans that he decided to name his kids human names.
It was interesting because it doesn't happen
Yeah.
often with Vulcans.
I mean,
That was
yeah, but that was kind of that was good. I like that. And he's just like, yeah, Doug. And then what did he say? His other kid was Susan or Karen
oh
or
yeah,
whatever that was.
how
Yeah.
random,
So
mate.
that was kind of interesting.
I
Yeah.
never got that one, but it was an amusing kind of side angle, I
Yeah.
guess. I just didn't hate it. It just didn't fit. That's what I'm trying to say. It didn't fit, but it was amusing all the same. But
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
it was a surprisingly good episode. I guess that's another small nitpick is I get the ears getting pointy, but the hair sticking up even more than usual. I'm sorry, that just made no sense. That is just illogical. That's just silly and stupid. It's funny. It's a nitpick. It's all it is, Gray.
Yeah, yeah,
It
yeah.
didn't make sense. I mean, Pike already has fantastic hair. He looked like he'd just eaten the whole packet of Viagra. Not just one, the whole packet of Viagra. His hair standing on the amount of hair gel that must have been in that, or hairspray, wow.
You
So,
know that the cast must have been ribbing him badly when
oh
he came
yeah.
out to looking like that to act. I would have had a hard time acting looking at him. I mean,
Well,
I wonder if there's some good bloopers from that episode. There's got to be.
but the thing is, they would have loved playing that role because if they're all acting silly, or not silly, normal, and then they have to act really serious for an episode, it's flexing your acting chops. And it's also the same for Ethan Peck or Leonard Nimoy or whoever in the past that's played him that is serious most of the time, but then every now and again is allowed one episode where they are silly for whatever reason and they get to flex their action chops a little bit. So it's kind of cool from an acting point of view. It's
Yeah,
a difficult thing to do, actually. Like you say, especially Doug, because you're saying the actor just always plays so many roles, and to actually play a serious role is something very different.
yeah,
So no, it was
yeah.
interesting.
But he pulled it
It,
off. So, guy's
he did.
talented.
He did. It was surprisingly good this episode, despite what I read online. So
Yeah, thank
please don't
goodness.
make the please don't make the last 2 3 episodes, last couple of episodes shit,
I
please.
know it's
Please don't.
probably too late, but I would love to
Oh,
see them not do that Muppet episode and just kind of go along with
oh
what they're hearing
no.
and just
Well,
decide that,
season
like,
four
well, that was
season
just
four
a funny whatever.
Gray, season four's done. It's in the bag. Well, in terms of filming, they're doing post production for it
Oh,
just now, aren't they? So we won't see it. We'll see that next year because
yeah, yeah.
they'll show Academy at the start of next year, and then they'll probably show Stranger World season 4 towards the end of
Okay,
next year.
great.
So at least we've got at least a year to wait.
Yeah,
I
we
don't
got
know
to
if it's a
suffer
good or a
through
bad thing.
Academy if Academy makes it to the air.
Listen. I know this is not Academy review. I'm actually looking forward to it a little bit. I'm going to give it the chance because they were very smart, Gray. They decided to not just make it classroom based. That could have been boring. That could have been
Yeah, yeah,
Deep Space Nine type thing, which I love now. But they've actually made the campus a ship which can be on the ground or go into space for missions. That was a masterstroke because, as they said on Academy, it's Star Trek. It needs a starship. And we all know Deep Space Nine's best seasons were when Defiant came in. You can
yeah,
have both. So it might be good. All I'll say is, Greg, on an open mind, mate, you might love it. You don't know.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. Who
but it'll
knows?
be no other Trek, so we kind of have to watch it,
Oh yeah,
we
yeah.
do it anyway, But yeah, listen, we will wrap up there. We enjoyed that episode. We just hope the last couple are decent as well. We'll try and be back next week about the same time for the next one.
Mm-hmm.
Until then, thank you for watching or listening or tuning in. And thank you to Gray. Until next week, say goodbye to the people, Mr. Gray.
Live long and prosper, everybody. See you later.
Bye bye.